What is occurring in Hawaii, specifically advanced by the city of Honolulu and the county, is nothing new for the environmentalists. We've seen multiple similar allegations made across the country. And while they're couched under state law claims, what these are really about is an effort by environmentalists to control energy policy in this country. They're attempting to do it through friendly forums, in this case, state court in Hawaii. And the people of Alabama absolutely object to a state court judge in Hawaii ultimately determining how it is that we deal with the fossil fuel industry here in this country. I think what we see here is the use of a damages verdict to either change the behavior of our fossil fuel companies or exponentially increase the cost of energy to the citizens of the United States. And again, the ability to do that through state court is not only legally wrong, when we know that we have a Clean Air Act that gives EPA the opportunity to regulate emissions in an appropriate way, that gives feedback from multiple stakeholders as to what that looks like. You have federal common law that has existed for years. It basically says disputes relating to cross-border pollution ought to be decided by federal courts and not state court, and that makes sense. You don't want to allow states like Hawaii or California to define energy policy for the entire country. But they're using the threat of a massive jury verdict to be able to bankrupt the fossil fuel industry. And that's not good for the citizens of Alabama. It's not good for providing affordable energy and available energy to the people of this country. And it's why it's important, although a case nestled in the state of Hawaii, long from the way from us here in Alabama, it's critically important for us to be engaged and, in fact, critically important for the Supreme Court ultimately to help decide this issue. When you look at the fact that there's a regulatory structure in this country where we have EPA that is defining policy under the Clean Air Act, Congress clearly gave them that authority to weigh in areas like this that Hawaii is now trying to regulate in a very different way. It's just a different venture or vehicle for the left to try to engage in energy policy, when definitely the courts are not the place for that to occur. I think this is activists and lawyers working to find a vehicle to advance kind of the Green New Deal in ways they couldn't do it in the past. I mean, look, the allegations in the complaint go back to the 50s. So it's not as if there was a discrete event that caused them to be able to file this claim. What they're using is an accumulation of events over time that they're attributing to something that frankly, is much in dispute in this country about impact and cause as a way of trying to ultimately regulate policy in this area. And by the way, I think it's very interesting. If you look at who they sued the fossil fuel companies. They didn't sue the airlines. They didn't sue the shipbuilders. They didn't sue the cruise companies or those who are providing goods to the people of Hawaii through boat. Those are things that benefit the state, right? Because it's a state flushed with tourism. People have to get there some way. Truly, if you believe that climate change is your vehicle for which you're seeking damages, then why don't you cast that net far more broadly? That's why it is clear what the real agenda here is. It's not to recover damages. It is to bankrupt the fossil fuel industry and accomplish what has not been able to be accomplished through the ballot box or through Congress. I mean, there are federal common law claims that can be asserted relating to cross-border pollution. You know, you've seen those occur in the past where states sue states, for example. One of those, you can even look right now, for example, with the Clean Air Act through the Good Neighbor rule that has been recently adopted, where EPA is getting into the question of pollution in one state or carbon emissions in one state and whether or not it impacts somebody, you know, whether it be right next door on the border or several states away. The approach that the Supreme Court ought to take is there are opportunities in federal court, both to make claims under federal statutory law or to allow for EPA, for example, to be the vehicle for which these ought to be examined, or whether or not there truly are federal common law claims that could be asserted that allow a federal judge to weigh in on whether or not they're valid.